This is Kieran Larwood's top tips to world building. Here we go.
Right. Okay. So this is, I mean, world building is a massive thing. You can spend as much time with it as you want, really. You can get completely lost in it. But these are my top tips for being able to build a world that's just the right size, the right amount of detail to be able to start writing some stories in it. So yeah, here we go. So draw a map. So when I started, one of my favorite authors of all time is J.R.R. Tolkien, who wrote The Hobbit and The Lord of the Rings. And I read that when he wrote those books, the first thing he did was he drew a map. He drew a map of Middle Earth. So when I did my my Tolkien world, I thought, oh, that's what I'm going to do. I sat down, I just sketched out a map in my notebook. It was very rough, the first one, but it's a really good thing to do, because before you do that, it's all just kind of floating around in your head, all these ideas, all these concepts. When you've got a map, it's like it's a real place. I don't know if it kind of tricks your brain into thinking it's real because there's a map of it, but then you start thinking, oh, this is where my characters are going to live, and you can actually start even plotting the story out. A lot of times I do workshops with children's schools. They draw a map. By the end of it, they've got like a whole series of books planned. So you can say, my heroes are going to live here. Here's where my villains are going to live. They're going to have to go. You can draw out the route they're going to have to go on their quest, and you can start planning your story. But that's a really good starting point. Definitely draw a map. I'm going to tell you how to do that in a minute. Next slide, please. Yeah, so when you're creating a world, obviously you're making it up yourself from scratch, and you want it to be like a believable place. So when your reader reads it, they want to think it's a real place. They can imagine they can actually go there and visit it. So the trick to doing that, I think, is not so much the big things. It's all about the little details. So things like invent the days of the week or the months of the year. What religion do people have? What kind of food do they eat? Little bits of languages or expressions they might have that are different from ours. And the more kind of detail you put into it, the more realistic it will seem when someone's reading it. They can imagine themselves there in that world you've created. Next one, please, Mr. Dilly. Yes, so it can be quite daunting to kind of come up with everything yourself. So what a lot of fantasy writers do is they use history. So, for example, the tribes in Tolkien's world, I took a lot of inspiration from the Bronze Age, the kind of Celtic world, where they had different tribes, different gods and goddesses, and they hadn't worked out how to use iron yet, so they had bronze and copper and things like that. So it's a really good idea to, if you know a bit about history, you can put some of that in there. A lot of fantasy writers use the medieval ages, or even further back, the Stone Age. So history is a good thing to study or look at if you want to kind of something to base it on. Next one, please, Mr. Dilly. Yeah, so experience the places you write about. So a lot of Tolkien is written in the natural world. There's forests, there's marshes, there's downs, there's woodlands. So I'm really lucky where I live here on the Isle of Wight. I've got all of that around me. And I used to, when I'm about to write a scene somewhere, I like to go out and kind of walk around the place and just kind of soak it all in. What can I see? What can I hear? What can I smell? And I put all those details into my writing. Again, it's another way of just making your world convincing and like a real place. Yeah, so when you start building a world, it's a bit overwhelming. You think, oh my goodness, I've got to name all these places, all these people, all these things, and there's a huge amount to do. But you don't have to create the entire world. You can if you want to, but you don't have to. You just need enough to have a starting place for your characters. So the place where they live, where they're going to travel, get all those details in, and the rest of it you can just kind of sketch out. And later on, if you come to writing those bits, then you can flesh it out. So, for example, with the Tolkien books, yeah, I've built them up over 9 books. I've built up the whole world. But when I wrote the first one, I just had Tolkien's area done properly first.
Okay, I think that's the end of those ones. I think it is, yes. So yes, there's some great tips there, really, really amazing. I like the bit you go out and just sort of look at it, but don't have to make everything up. Otherwise, it's sort of huge, isn't it?